The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 10, The Next World. Now, I feel like this episode could have easily had two different titles because honestly, the first one should have been You Should Have Went Back the Way You Came, and the other one could have easily just been, well, Jesus Christ, because they just did a bunch of crap in this episode. And one, we get the introduction to Jesus, and that was interesting, and he comes in, and from the start, it's like, alright, I knew it had to be a certain character because I've mentioned this before. I read the comics, so as soon as I saw him, I was like, all right, it's a little weird. I didn't think it was him at first, and then he was once it came back from commercial. I was like, okay, he's got the long hair. He bumped into him. He was all like, oh, everything's fine. This is okay, and they're a bunch back there, and everything's cool. I'm like, that's Jesus. I'm pretty sure that's him. And so of course he says like, hey, my name is Jesus, or my friends call me Jesus, and I knew that some interesting stuff was gonna happen with him, and I love the way that they did it because from what I remember from the comics, it was a very, very different introduction. Like in this, he's a very crazy character because it's clear that he's not a bad guy, especially by the end, because he's clearly crazy, based on the ending, but he's not a bad guy because he could have easily killed Rick and Daryl, clearly based on his martial arts skills. He just like, Rick's like, calm down and maybe we won't hurt you. He's like, oh, that's great, and then he like does like the, back with his elbows, and he takes him down, throws Daryl up against the car, or the truck, and it's just like he could just take them both down if he chose to, but it's clear he's not a bad guy, and he's trying to figure out who they are, and it was just interesting watching them deal with this. And the start of this episode was very interesting. Like they did a lot of stuff in this episode that really surprised me. The very first thing, well, I guess there's only one thing that really kind of surprised me. Everything else was like, all right, introduction to Jesus, fairly surprising, but I knew he was coming to the show, especially with what they're doing with Negan. They kind of can't, not have Jesus. But when it first started and we see the picture of Carl with the eye patch, that really surprised me because in the comic books, he is down for a very long time after he gets shot. So I was really surprised that they actually did it this way where, it goes straight to the next episode and he's up and it's fine, and it seemingly like the beginning of this episode was like the happiest we've seen them in a very long time. And I like that idea. I thought it was interesting. Oddly enough, despite what happened to Rick and Daryl, this is actually a pretty, like, sobering type of episode where people were either, calm and happy, during certain portions, or they were able to overcome, certain obstacles, like Spencer with Deanna by the end of this episode, which I thought was a really great scene. And I figured it had to be Deanna. I figured it was either Deanna or it was the boy that was trying to kill Carl. And I was like, no, he wouldn't. I was like, he probably wouldn't feel that way if it was the boy. Like, he, blew his eye out and, knocked him unconscious. And plus, he tried to kill him before that anyway. And the only reason he shot him in the eyes because he was trying to kill his dad. So I was like, it's probably not him because he wouldn't give a crap. And then they show the legs and stuff, and I was trying to remember. I'm like, I don't, I'm not looking at anybody's legs or anything. So I was trying to remember or something, but I kind of figured it was Deanna, and it does end up being Deanna, and Spencer, finally has his moment towards the end of this episode where he, takes her down, and then we get a great little moment between Michonne and Carl where he's like, I couldn't do that to her because it should have been family. It should have been someone that really loved her, and I would have done the same thing for you. And I was thinking, oddly enough, I guess they did this on purpose, but from the very beginning of this episode, I'm like, I was wondering, honestly, from the very beginning, like, are, Rick and Michonne actually together now? Because clearly they skipped quite a bit of time, and everything seems like happy, and they're just like, all right, we're doing this, and they're going out on a big supply run, and it's like, get some pop and stuff, which is another thing I want to talk about, because that was one of my favorite moments in this episode, because I'm from Michigan, so we say pop here, like, in the eastern, I guess, upper side, over our way, we say that stuff, like, that's just what we say pop, and I thought that was actually really, really funny that they had her say that, and then Daryl's like, what the hell is pop? And she's like, oh, I'm from Ohio. I'm originally from Ohio. And I thought that was really cool because I don't think I've ever seen that in the show where they talk about, something so minor. And it was like, that's really awesome because up here we say pop. I'm in Michigan. So we say pop. We don't say soda. And so now if you ever go anywhere and someone says, can you get me a pop? Or, you know, whatever, they mean soda. So we basically took, pop out of soda pop, and pretty much everywhere else took soda from soda pop. So I don't know, like just Midwest area, Eastern stuff. That's just what we say. I don't know why, but that's what we do. But I thought that was awesome that they put that in there. It's just a random thing that, because that happened to me before when I went on the cruise. I said pop, and then I was like, what? And I was like, oh. I was like, oh, soda. I forgot. But that was a random little thing that I liked. But they were super happy in the beginning of this episode. It's like, oh, get this for Carol because it might be a nice surprise for her. And if you guys want to check this out, premium. I don't know what the heck Eugene was saying. It was like premium corn or whatever he was saying. And then just like, all right, Rick's playing music and stuff. He's playing like licensed music and all this stuff and having a great freaking time. And then he made like the dumbest decision he's ever made. One of the dumbest decisions he's ever made in the entire series, which is, you know what? We'll go back a different route so that we can scout stuff out. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, okay, I understand why he'd say that because yes, you should scout areas that you don't know. But when you find the quintessential mother lode of quintessential mother loads for everything they could have possibly needed, you don't take any extra routes. You go exactly the way you came because you know exactly what things are supposed to look like because you've been driving. I mean, they start off, we get the footage of them driving in the car. It's a long freaking path of nothing, and I'm sure that was most of their drive. And I'm like, that's all they had to do was go back. And of course, that would have been a totally different episode, but they could have had Jesus in there. I was just like, I was just so hurt by seeing that. I was just like, they could have been so much happier. And it's not going to matter soon anyway. I know that for sure. But I was like, just this one episode, they could have just had everything go right. Maybe they do that. And for whatever crazy reason, they went out a second time and then they run into Jesus or something. But it's just the whole thing was like, oh, he stole the truck. They got the truck. They were just sprinting down that highway, which I thought was a very interesting scene. Like, they're just running. They get to the vending machine. They get some Crush Pop, which I was surprised they even showed what type of pop it was. That kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh, because normally any TV show is like, make sure you don't see logos and stuff. But that was Orange Crush, and that junk is good. And they get the truck from Jesus, and I was like, all right, they got the truck. And then they're driving, and it's like, oh, here's a farm. I was like, what the heck are they doing? And I guess that was for Eugene and the premium corn or whatever. And I'm just like, why did they do that? I know they tied him up and everything, which, of course, we saw that played out, because he's on the freaking roof, which just made him an even more awesome character, because I didn't expect that to happen. But he's on the freaking roof. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, I figured something was weird in the back of the truck. Like maybe, he took a bunch of stuff out or something weird was in there. But it was him on the roof, which was just nuts. And then, of course, he falls off when Rick hits the brakes. I thought he was going to pass out after he stood up because it looked like he stood up, like he jumped up. And I thought he was just going to pass out because he flew off the front of a truck. And they also did you could barely hear it, but they did a little Wilhelm scream, which I thought was kind of funny. But I thought he was about to pass. I was like, nope, he's still got energy, and he takes off running. And they go through all this crap, and they lose the truck in the water. And I was just like, wow. And all they had to do was hit the brakes, because of course they flipped the thing, which shouldn't have gone off anyway. But for whatever reason, the car actually went into reverse, even though the keys weren't in there. And I'm like, all they have to do is just step on the brakes. It'll be fine. And what happens? They jump out. And that's what happens. They jump out of the car. Daryl goes rolling. Jesus gets his head just whacked by the truck as he goes by, which I thought was kind of funny. And then it just goes off into the water and it just sinks. And I'm like, that's why you go back the way you came. You don't explore in a zombie apocalypse. You don't explore in any apocalypse. If you find something like that, you just go right back. And then you go get the car and you go back home again. But just complete disaster the whole time. So that kind of sucked, but we did get a new character out of it. I know where it's going to lead to, and they kind of allude to it a little bit in the promo, but of course I won't spoil anything like that. But we're going to get some pretty cool stuff, so I'm excited to see that they, kind of went forward with that really quick. It was like we got, crazy episode last time, and then boom, Carl's awake, things are super happy. We get Jesus, we go through like this crazy. It was almost like a movie, a comedy movie, like a comedy drama a little bit in this episode, honestly, because of what they had to go through and how resilient he was at trying to talk to them, and him beating them, or them beating him, and just the back and forth with it. And ultimately it's just like, there goes the truck, and yet they save the guy because that's what they do now. And Rick's trying to recruit him at first, and Daryl's like, not this guy, and then of course they switch, but they ultimately end up saving him at the end because they realize he's not a bad guy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how all that stuff plays out and everything. And of course, we have the very ending of this episode with Rick and Michonne. And I mentioned, and like I said, I guess they did that on purpose. But the beginning of this episode, I'm like, alright, clearly they skipped quite a bit of time. Are they just together? Because she's just walking around in the towel and stuff, and it's like, oh, I need toothpaste, and they're joking around about toothpaste and stuff like that. And it's just grand old times, and, Rick's messing with Carl, like, I didn't hear you, and he's like, oh, I heard you and stuff. And they're just laughing it up like a little happy family. And then they make it official by the end of this episode, and Rick and Michonne are together. And that's pretty cool, because they don't have that in the comic books. It's kind of the same thing as it has been for quite a couple of seasons, and I'm not current with the series, so they could be together, but I'm pretty sure they're not, based on some other stuff I heard. But that's kind of how it was even in the comics, where it's like, you would think that they'd get, together, but they don't. And in this they did, so I thought that was very cool. And they actually do it, because I thought it was just going to be like a little, oh, they made out and stuff. And then it skips, and it's like, oh no, they're nude. And it's like, gun on one side, Katana on the other side. I was like, that's really cool. And then, someone calls for Rick, and I thought it was, I actually thought it was Spencer, because I'm like, I don't recognize the voice, and I was thinking, it could be Spencer, because I'm not, used to 6 seasons of him or anything, so I thought it was him at first. And I thought, oh, it's going back to, like, bad, Walking Dead, like something bad just happened. And then it turns out to be Jesus, and he's like, we need to talk. It's just like guns and boobs and penises out and crap. And he's just like, yeah, I think we need to talk. And it's like, this guy is trying to get his head blown off. But I like him because he's weird, and he's got skill to survive, clearly, but it just, a lot of just craziness in this episode. But I certainly enjoyed it. Liked a lot of, random little things. The pop thing I know is totally irrelevant to the entire episode, but it mattered to me. We did get to see Maggie in like one scene, which was interesting, because we normally don't have it where characters show up in literally like one scene, and I think they technically did that for Eugene as well during the car scene. But we did get to see Maggie talking to Edith, if that's her name. I don't really remember. Honestly, I still kind of don't care that much about her character, but she talks to her and stuff, and then we actually get to see Edith go out with Carl, and they're in the forest and everything, and they're just hanging out. They don't even have like an important thing until, um, the Deanna Walker comes up to them. So it was kind of funny. They were seriously just hanging out, reading comics. They were reading Invincible, which it's been in the series several times before, but that's the comic. That's one of the other comic books that Robert Kirkman works on. So that's why that was in there, and I'm sure if you see any video with comments on it, people will be like, oh, they were reading Invincible again and stuff like that. And they've had toys of it. I think it was during the mid-season finale, I believe. They had like the little Lego toys were from Invincible as well. And they've had some other stuff from other comics too that Kirkman's worked on. But I thought that was cool. It was like, oh, there's Invincible again. And they're just hanging out, eating. It looked like they were eating little pretzel bites. It looked like they were eating combos. I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but those are little pretzel bites with like cheese or other random things in the middle. But they're just hanging out reading comics, and it was like nothing. I was like, this is a crazy episode. It was oddly peaceful, and it stayed peaceful though. I mean, aside from the Rick Daryl thing, which ultimately I knew was never gonna be dangerous. I knew they weren't gonna like die or anything like that, so I was never too worried about it. And even though it ended in kind of a crappy way with them losing everything in that truck, it was still just like that type of episode where the only really tragic thing that happened was with Spencer when he had to deal with taking out, Deanna for like the final time and confronting that issue. But everything else, ultimately, even though it might have sucked with the truck, everything was fine. It was just like, yeah, it's crazy. They made jokes about it. There was just comedy, like all throughout this episode. It was just like people enjoying themselves. And after they put Jesus down and they have the note and everything, Rick's like, yeah, it probably was a stupid idea for us to go. I was like, yep, and do it tomorrow. Yep. And it was just like, that's like a silly little thing, and they don't have that too often. So it was a crazy change of pace. For it definitely had its tension, for sure with the Rick and Daryl storyline, but it was just like a lot of calm moments and even the frantic stuff. I guess because I knew who Jesus was, I probably wasn't nearly as tense. And I didn't like the scene with the zombie coming up to Daryl when they're like fighting in the car. I'm like, nothing's gonna happen there. I knew Jesus would save him because of the character that he was. Even just through this episode, I think that was a bit obvious that he was gonna end up saving him. So it was like, nothing's gonna happen to Daryl. Plus, they lose like every person watching the show because everyone loves Daryl so much. Um, but it was a good episode. They have like, the crazy moment like when Rick and Daryl get the truck back and they pin him down. They pin Jesus down. They have the guns on him, and he's like, "You guys even have bullets?" And they just shoot a walker, and then they point him back at him. He's like, all right, I guess that's fair enough. Just little stuff like that is what really stood out in this episode. Like little change of pace type things. I also got a really crazy Boondock Saints vibe from that scene as well, because they're just the way that they were looking. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, Norman Reedus is one of the main characters in the Boondock Saints movies. There's only two of them so far. There's supposed to be a third, but obviously The Walking Dead kind of picked up, so I don't know when that, or if that'll ever happen, because he would have a crazy schedule. But when I saw that, it was just like the way they shot and everything, I was like, I'm getting a really serious Boondock Saints vibe. So a lot of stuff, a lot of little things to love about this episode. I am excited to see what they do with Jesus and where things go from here. I'm really looking forward to that because I kind of know what to expect. So I'm really excited for. Hopefully, it kind of they do it really quickly, and it seems like that's their plan because, like I said, they skip quite a bit of time from what I was expecting, and we get Carl just up and at it again. I'm very curious when they're gonna take the bandages off, or if they're gonna do like a governor type thing and give him an eye patch or whatever. Because in the comics, he doesn't have an eye patch or anything. Like he does at first for quite a while. Like he's knocked out for a super long time, then he's up, and he has that eye patch for a super long time, or the bandages. But then he takes it off, and it's crazy. So I don't know if we're gonna get that or not, but I kind of hope we do because it's just like a little thing where every time you see it, it's just one of those factors that's like just an insane moment, but it'll never go away. So it'll just always be there. So I'm hoping that we do actually get that, and I'm really curious how they're gonna play around with that idea because it would be CG like 24/7 unless they did prosthetics on him, and then he'd have to have that, which would kind of suck for him as well because he'd have to walk around really only being able to see out of one eye for the rest of the series, which kind of sucks because that it'll have to be that way unless they give him like a little like green screen, like a part of a mask or something. In which case, he still won't really be able to see as easily. So it just sucks that they kind of have to do that. But I always knew it was coming. Like, oh, that's gonna happen one day, and it's gonna suck once it does, because Chandler Riggs is just gonna have to be going around acting with one eye, and it'll just be weird. But this was a fun episode. It's weird to say that. It's weird to say like all the episodes are good, but it's weird to say like this was actually like a fun episode, and it had its serious moments. But ultimately, this was just like this was a pretty cool episode where it was just like the tension wasn't too high. I didn't expect anything bad to happen to anybody. And then we had like our little dramatic moment with Spencer. We had the little dramatic moment after that between between Carl and Michonne. And then we have like surprising little love scene where they finally get together, and then they do it. And then we have Jesus just being crazy. It's like, hey, like I know you guys are totally naked and just did it, and you might just blow me away because I'm kind of being a bit of an idiot, but I'm looking forward to the next episode for sure. I don't expect it to be like super happy fun time for sure. Like this episode, like it wasn't even that happy of an episode, but it's like compared to normal stuff from The Walking Dead, especially when you compare it to the last one, this was like sunshine and rainbows 100%. They got music playing and jokes and all this other stuff, just surprises for people. It's like this is just super happy time. So I enjoyed it. It was a good episode. Definitely a contrast to most episodes we've had in the entire series, but certainly enjoyable. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and of course, we have the introduction of a new character who I assume is going to be sticking around for a while. Whether they stick to the comics or not, I'm pretty sure he's going to be around for at least a little bit. So I want to know what you guys think about the introduction of the character Jesus, or if you want to use his regular name, which he may have said was Nate. I really don't remember. I just because that's what they call him in the comics, so I just go with the whole Jesus thing. But I want to know what you guys thought about his character, whether you read the comics or not. How you felt about his portrayal as a character, because it was really crazy in the. I don't believe that. I actually he may have done the truck climbing thing in the comics. He did some crazy stuff in there too, where he just like he got caught by a couple of people and he beat up like 5 guys or something. I was like, oh, and that's how they showed his martial arts in the comics. He beat up like a couple of bad people because they busted him. He was just like done, and I'm out of here. I was like, all right, that was weird. But want to know what you guys thought about him and the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.